Hello, everybody. This is Gino Johnson, CEO of Champions for Veterans, and I am so excited to say hey and thank you so much for listening to our Convos with Heroes podcast series, where we have convos with heroes who just have big hearts and really love to make an impact on the world. We have a special guest with us today, and Rod Hatley. He has a great story, and we'll hear that here in a few minutes, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about him. But before we move on over to Rod, I want to say hey to my dad. Hey, Dad, good to see you. Good to have you on.
All right, son. Rod, glad to have you on. We got a great American hero. Rod's going to come on board. I'm just going to tell you, I don't hold it against him that he's a Navy man. I do not hold that against him at all. I'm saying that right now in front of everybody. So I still love Navy guys just the same as Army guys. But anyway, let me kick it back to you, sir.
Love it. Oh, man. Awesome. Well, yeah, man. Thank you so much, Rod, for coming on. So I give everybody a little bit of background about Rod. So Rod, he is a former Navy JAG. You got to think Tom Cruise and A Few Good Men. He never defended a service member at a murder trial like in A Few Good Men, but he had lots of trigger time in the courtroom. He handled a total of 84 courts and boards, which is more than a lot of civilian attorneys can say. Tom became an estate planning attorney after going through a 7-year probate after his father died from leukemia. His goal is to make sure none of his clients' families ever have to go through probate. After all, life's too short to be tied up in probate court.
Bingo.
All right. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to sharing some of my insights for what they're worth with your listeners. So happy to have this opportunity.
Man, we happy to have you on with us, Rod, man, and just excited to hear your story and learn a lot more about you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
normally how we kind of jump right into it and get started, we just ask, hey, tell us who Rod is. We just love for you to go ahead and start telling us who
Yeah. Former Navy JAG. I had the privilege to serve in the early part of the 90s. I'm from Memphis originally, came to California with the Navy JAG Corps. And let's see, I was on active duty actually during the run up to the first Gulf War. So we helped mobilize a lot of the active duty and reserve units in and around the Bay Area and got them ready to go overseas in support of Operation Desert Shield and Storm. And then I was sent to the high desert of California, and that's where I basically closed out my career. I got caught up in the downsizing of the mid-90s, so I unfortunately didn't have a chance to have a career. But in the meantime, my father had passed away, and decided, you know what, I know what the next chapter of my life is going to be. So when I came off of active duty in 95, I transitioned into, I got an additional law degree in tax law. And then I transitioned into private practice. And so that's what I've been doing for the past quarter century, I guess. Hard to believe, it's been about 25 years. But that's what I've been doing, is working with clients and their families to make sure that nobody has to go through probate court. I mean, it's really unnecessary. It's so easily avoidable. And so that's what I think I bring to the conversation, is having lived that experience. I don't want my clients to have to go through it.
Man, that is awesome, man. I want to hear more about probate court. I feel like that's something I talked to somebody about probably about a month ago. Actually, I was talking to somebody because I'm getting married in May, and we were discussing, oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. We were discussing, life insurance and having a will and having all of that put together, because if not, it can put you in a tough situation after you pass.
It's absolutely essential. And if you own a home, or if you're going to buy a home, and I don't know if you'll start a family, or maybe she has children, or whatever the situation might be, it's not about you anymore. It's about her. It's about the family. And just get out ahead of this and have a plan in place. I mean, we're living in a pandemic right now, so it's important to have the right documents in place. For example, a healthcare directive, a HIPAA authorization. Those are great documents to have, because none of us knows. And life is short. And so I just encourage people, when you have those major life changes, like getting married, if you don't have a plan, get one in place, please. I think it makes a difference for your family should something happen. But we're all going to pass at some point. But what if there's an incapacity? How do you deal with that? Or how will your spouse now deal with that? So that's a great way to get out ahead of those potential problems in the future.
Absolutely. Agreed. Thank you. That's awesome work you're doing, for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And, And I mean, you know, this is just phenomenal. A lot of people will see this, and I don't know if you have a website or something like
I
that
do.
too. You want to give, like, give in that, because I believe veterans that are hearing this
Yeah.
may want to talk to you about that. If you got that, you can give that now. We'll make sure we put that in the
Yeah, it's
comments. Go ahead and give that if you don't mind.
yeah, happy to give that to you. It's Hatley, Hatley, law, LAW, group, GROUP.com, HatleyLawGroup.com. And I'm licensed both in California, where I live and practice now, and also in my home state of Tennessee. But I belong to a national organization of estate planning attorneys. So if a veteran should reach out, I can almost invariably find somebody in their local area who can help. So certainly feel free to reach out. I'd be honored to hear from you, and honored to make a recommendation for your local area.
Oh man, this is I knew I was going to enjoy the conversation because we've had a chance to work together for the last few weeks on some other things we're working on, Rod. But I did not know where I was going to get all this for even just me and all the veterans that are going to listen. So let's dive into it, man. I got to get you broken down a little bit, because as everybody see, Rod is a button-up guy. He's a lawyer, suit and tie, and I'm going to break him down a little bit because he's from Memphis, Tennessee, and I used to live over in Oxford, and I know what all the barbecue down on Bill Street and all that. So I'm going to take you back. Now, first of all, you know, you're the first JAG. Now, for the civilians that don't know, JAG is a military lawyer. And he was a lawyer in the military. So I got to break this down for the civilians that are watching this that may not know what that term means, right?
Right.
But I know you said your dad. How did you get from Memphis? So did you go to high school in Memphis? Did you were your boy there? Give us about that Memphis story.
Yeah, born and raised in Memphis, and you know, I had got through law school, and what happened was I lived in Memphis all my life, and just decided, you know, gosh, I'd sure like to see the world, and the JAG was an opportunity to do just that. And the thing that was appealing to me about being in the JAG was that you get immediate responsibility. I mean, for a lot of attorneys, they may join a firm and they may spend a number of years, you know, carrying the senior partner's briefcase into the courtroom, but they never get to try cases on their own.
Wow.
And I can tell you for a fact that when I completed Naval Justice School in Newport, Rhode Island, and then went back to Memphis for about a week, and then from there I drove to San Francisco. Treasure Island was my first duty station. I was assigned immediately right out the gate as a criminal defense attorney. So I mean, you get handed, and I think that's what the Navy probably does best, is it gives people immediate responsibility. I do think the Army probably does a little bit smarter, though. You don't get to be a criminal defense attorney until you've served a tour as a prosecutor. Now you know how the prosecution thinks, and then you get to be a criminal defense attorney. But in any event, that's how the Navy teaches people to swim. They just throw you in the water. I mean, you know, they're going to get immediate experience, and so you're going to either sink or swim. So, and I probably would have preferred being a prosecutor first and then be transitioning to being a defense counsel. But in any event, I got immediate responsibility, and I think that was valuable. And that's what the Navy does, is it trains young attorneys. So got that experience right out the gate.
I can remember being in the military. Now, I never sit on a court martial before, but I believe I was an E8 first sergeant. I received a notice. It's kind of like being a civilian, that you have to go down and you may be a juror on a court martial.
Sure.
And I'd never been into a military trial before, but just walking into that courtroom at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and it was all bland and just, I'll never forget the feeling. It was intimidating. I mean, I wasn't on trial. I was there to maybe be a juror in a trial of a court martial. And again, when I walked in there, I'm not a new guy to the military. I was an E8 first sergeant who'd been in the Army at least 15 years. But I can tell you, because I'm thinking about you saying how the Navy throws you in straight out of school. I can't imagine getting thrown in, because I'm a senior non-commissioned officer, and I'm walking in not to be on trial, but to be a juror, and I felt my knees shake. Yeah.
Well, you know, when I represented, and there's probably no more a sense of, oh my God, this is it. I was representing the defendant. You know, it was probably a UA, or unauthorized absence case, and it was a bench trial, so it was just a military judge alone. So, and then, the judge retires to his chambers to make a decision, comes back on the bench and says, well, accused and counsel, please rise. Boy, you talk about knees of jelly, because you're thinking, did I do everything that I could to help my client out?
Right.
And, but what I realized is that, everybody goes through that. So it's not, but it's even intimidating for the attorneys, because you have the butterflies and the knees of jelly, and you're just hoping that you've done everything. And, you're running through your mind, did I do everything that I could do? Did I talk to everybody that I could have talked to? So that, yeah, it definitely, I felt that experience, believe me.
Now, look, one thing I love to go ahead, son.
I was gonna go ahead and ask. I think one thing I've learned, in talking to my dad and kind of being like as a civilian, coming from the civilian perspective, right? When I think about the military, it's not like a regular job at all.
No,
right?
it isn't.
You go into this, you learn, you get into physical shape, but you also go through these schools and you learn skills. And I think a lot of times, most people kind of growing up, there's this whole idea of got to go to college. You only learn in college, and you go and get a job. But I feel like there's so many things you learn in the service. And my question is just to understand, like, just the structure of, like, how did you become an attorney? Did you become an attorney through the service, or were you did you go to school for that and get into the service? Like, how did that work?
Well, I mean, the Navy has, and I think the Army too, the Navy has a variety of ways that you can do it. I only learned after the fact. For example, when I was at Treasure Island, we had a ship driver who was spending the summer with us the year that I, in '89. This was a gentleman who was a surface warfare officer in the Navy, and he went through the Navy's law education program and had been accepted to Stanford Law School. So the Navy paid his books and tuition, his salary as a naval officer, and he owed them 2 years for every 1 year that they paid for law school. So it was a 2-for-1 payback. So it was 3 years of law school. So he owed them 6 years additional on active duty, but it's a hell of a deal, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I was a direct appointment. I sought and received a direct appointment to the Navy JAG Corps after I came out of law school. And you can apply during law school, but I hadn't thought about that. But then I thought, as I was looking around at my options in Memphis, I thought, this seems, gosh, have to spend all those years carrying the senior partner's briefcase. You don't really get any responsibility. And gosh, I spent all this time and effort to become an attorney. So, and I looked into the JAG Corps, and I was really impressed by what I saw. So I said, wow, that's good to me. And I had the opportunity to come to California and go to San Francisco. And I said, absolutely, let's do this. So that's how I came to California.
Wow.
So that was amazing. So you went to the University of Memphis or Memphis State when you were there?
That was Memphis State when I was there. It's now the University of Memphis. And actually, they have done a really good job. The law school has moved downtown where the courts are located, et cetera. And it's a beautiful building. It was, it's the old post office and custom house. And so they did like a $40 million retrofit on the facility. And I've not been to it, but I've seen photos of it, et cetera. And they've done a beautiful job. And it's really the kind of law school that the students deserve to have, because the previous law school was very cramped and they didn't have a lot of space. And now they've got classrooms. They have the Tennessee Supreme Court will meet there for certain, arguments and stuff like that. So it gives the students a really interactive experience, which I think is really helpful, because so much of the stuff is just esoteric. It's all abstract. But if you can see it in real life, I think it has a lot more meaning for people. And you don't have to travel to Nashville to go to the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court is actually coming to University of Memphis's law school, and they have a courtroom set up, et cetera. So it's really very helpful, I think, for the students.
Wow. So look, talk about this, your experience, and I'm so excited to have you on the call. I mean, you're our first lawyer to be on the call.
Sure.
Talk about getting out of the military and becoming a civilian lawyer. Compare, contrast, experience you had. Just kind of talk about that piece of it.
Sure. Well, what had happened was Dad had died while I was on active duty, and I took 2 weeks emergency leave, went back to Memphis. Week number 1, we got him buried. Week number 2, we opened up a probate. And so I just decided, this thing was just taking time. He died in '92. By '95, I'm still, I'm coming off of active duty. And I decided, what's the next adventure going to be? And unfortunately, I was stuck in the high desert of California. So it's really, I didn't want to stay there. but it's really challenging to find a job from long distance. Okay. So I decided I wanted to know more about tax law because, I had an interest. I never thought when I went through law school to begin with, I'd ever have an interest in doing anything like estate planning. They just didn't appear to me. But going through the experience of that probate, I said, there has to have been a better, smarter way to have done it than this. All Dad had was a simple will that guarantees you're going to go through probate. And I decided we need to understand more about how we could have done a better job here. I can't change what's happened. I mean, that's done. But I bet if I could get this figured out, I could help other people avoid what my sister and I are having to go through with this probate. So that for me was the reason for going to get an additional law degree. When I completed that, I then made the transition into private practice. And I think, and one of the questions that I think Gino had shared with me was, what would you, I think, what was it? What piece of advice would you give to someone starting out in your career? I think this would be valuable for anybody, probably, but certainly for the folks who might be attorneys or going to law school or thinking about law school. Find a good mentor, someone who can teach you how to practice law as an attorney. Because, I mean, in the military, you're assigned, they give you cases. So as a criminal defense attorney, you've got a ready, list of clients. Okay, they're coming to see you because they got into trouble and they need to know what their rights and responsibilities are, et cetera. But now if you're in the civilian side of things, you're going to have to learn how to go out and generate business. And it would be helpful to know, well, okay, let's say I get some business. What do I do now? So have someone to show you how and work with you, co-counsel with you, show you how to, from A to Z, what do you do to service the client, take care of them, and go out and do that all over again, get additional business. Law school is great at teaching you how to think like a lawyer, and that has a certain value, of course, but it doesn't teach you, how to run a law practice, how to get clients, how to service clients, et cetera. I would say this, I felt, in a lot of ways, like when I came out of law school, even though I had all this knowledge, I was functionally illiterate. I only knew where the courthouse was located because I'd actually clerked for a couple of state court judges back in Memphis, but most people don't know where the courthouse is located. Never been to the courthouse. So I think finding a good mentor is really key, whether that's as a professional or with whatever else you're going to do in life. Find somebody who's doing what you want to be doing and see if you can't get them to help you, in whatever you choose to do in life. I think a good mentor, and in the Navy, a brand new officer maybe came out of ROTC, maybe came out of the academy, whatever. And I think you'd agree with this, Ranger. The idea is the Navy chiefs are the folks who really run the Navy. Right. So if a new officer has got his or her head on straight, they probably say, you know what, I don't know enough to, know anything. So I need to be working with a Navy chief to help me. And you look to them for guidance. Well, how do I do this? Or how would I do that? Because so many folks, they have this knowledge, but they don't know what to do with it. And finding out how to actually apply it. That's why working with the chief or the senior enlisted folks, whether it be the Army or wherever.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated. That's fine. I'm fascinated by your story. And I want to go back to with your father passing away, and then you and your sister, you're a lawyer, but now you got to figure this piece out about probate, which was new for you to figure out. And this is what I want to add to or just ask you about. Even in our program with Champions for Veterans, the Ranger method in helping vets get their VA benefits came through my 17 years of pain and dealing with the VA on getting my VA benefits to 100%. And at the end of that journey, I went just like you, Rod. I said, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. I said, why did it take me 17 years to get what I felt I should have gotten when I came out of the Army? Because I didn't understand the paperwork, the procedures, how to do it. And I said, just like you, wait a minute, there's got to be a method. Well, I'm going to create that method. Is that kind of the passion that drove you to doing that, dealing with your dad?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed trial work. It was fun, but God, it was stressful. I'd come out of courts martial with a throbbing headache. And I've tried cases up until 2:00 in the morning. And I can tell you, that didn't happen all the time, but it happened on occasion, because we had to, you were trying to process the cases through. you know, sometimes you just had to you stayed until the job was done, period.
Right.
But yeah, that's exactly what drove me to do what I'm doing now. I mean, I enjoy trial work, but you know, and when I walked into the courtroom, I knew the case better than the prosecutor did. But you know, I was always in a reactive mode. That's the thing I can tell you about being a defense attorney, is because most of the time, you know, your clients, they come to you, they've kind of messed up their lives. They've violated the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. So now, what are you going to do to help limit the amount of damage that they're going to sustain? So, you know, you're always in a reactive mode. Now, by doing what I do, I get to be proactive, and I like that eminently better, because now I can make a real positive impact on my clients and their families, so that there won't be these issues later on, like a probate, multi-year probate, or a conservatorship. Someone's incapacitated mentally. You don't have to go through the conservatorship. That's a guardianship for a grown person.
Right.
You can avoid all that nonsense by getting out ahead of it, by having a good plan that's counseled, you know, according to what's important to the client, or their hopes, fears, dreams, and aspirations. And by doing that, I think clients are better served, and it's, you know, it's a better feeling. You know, I mean, when I got the occasional acquittal, and I got a few, you know, that's, you're kind of elated, you're walking on air, but it's rare. Okay. And the best you can do is hope that you can keep the guy from having to spend multi-years in the brick, you know, or the stockade, you know, if you're in the Army. But, you know, I like the idea that I do appreciate being able to be proactive. I think clients appreciate that a lot more. I mean, I can do a probate. I don't seek them out, though. They just take too long, and the clients are never happy with that. But I think the families are much happier with a more streamlined, you know, having a living trust and having that plan ahead of time than having to do something after the fact.
Yeah. So right now, what you would say, what you do now is get out ahead. You help families. If you could put into a paragraph, like what does Rod do? What do? You help families get ahead of the potential deaths that will happen for all of us. So how do you put that in a paragraph form or a story form if you're talking to a potential client? How do you help?
You know, if you want my 30-second elevator pitch, I advise, okay, I'll give it to you. I advise successful individuals and families on estate planning strategies that eliminate taxes and protect assets so they can leave legacies. Boom.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and it took me years to really be able to articulate that. Or I said another way, I will help you protect everyone you love and everything you own, and my firm has the resources to do just that.
Wow. That is tremendous, because I can tell you right now, it's amazing. I'm so glad. Thank you for doing this, because it's kind of like talking to my son. You know, my son's a CPA, and of course, you know, the untrained mind, I just thought all CPAs did the same thing. All right. Right. You know, they do taxes, and then talking to my son, like, Dad, didn't do taxes. You know, he'll tell what he did in a minute. You know, he knows more about it than I do. Because I always thought, okay, you're a CPA, you do tax law. He's like, that's not what I do. and the lay person, the person, you know, the average person like me thinks, well, all lawyers, you know, you're doing, you know, you're chasing ambulances, or you know, car crashes, you know, or you prosecute or defendant. You're bringing in some things that I've never even thought about, and that's tremendous.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to kind of like, basically I did auditing, I did accounting, I did a few different things. So we don't have to get into everything I did in accounting on this podcast, but but you know, one thing that you guys, both of you shared, you know, that I feel like I'm seeing as a pattern amongst the folks that we talk to and people we interact with is, you know, it's amazing how from your pain can be somebody else's gain. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, and as I say, I never, you know, I took the basic course in law school on wills and trusts, and it meant nothing to me because I'd never had any experience with it. I mean, but I think once I went through, you know, firsthand just the tragedy, and I know Dad didn't want this for us, but Dad had leukemia. So at that point, he's making emotional choices in his life. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, trying to get out ahead of that, at that point, it's too late. They're just not able to do anything because they're scared. And so you're dealing with these emotions. So what I hope I can bring to the conversation is, having lived through that experience, I can tell folks, look, probate is optional. It really, truly is. But you've got to work with me. You've got to meet me halfway on this so that we can put a plan into place that will remove that as a possibility. Okay. And some people want to do that and other people can't be convinced to do so. And that's fine, because even if you don't write a plan of your own, guess what? The state where you live has already written a plan for you. It's called probate. And it may not be the plan you would want, because how many financially possible 18-year-olds do you know? I never met one.
Right. Right.
It's, and we try to, bring it down to, grassroots level. I don't like to talk real high and lofty and use legalese. I try to speak in plain English if I can and just say, hey, look, guys, it's really up to you. But what an estate plan is, whether you have a will or a trust, is basically a set of instructions. What do you want to have happen if you're incapacitated or when you die? And I think that makes a real difference for folks, so that they don't have to go through, a lot of the stuff is avoidable. And I think just know your options and then make a choice that works for you. I don't care what it is, but just know what your options are and then make an informed choice.
When it comes to being successful, I'm glad we're having this conversation. Right now, can I ask, how old are you, Rod? How old are you?
I'm 60 years old and I can't believe it.
60 years old, right? 60.
It's like, how did this happen?
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back. This goes into the question.
Yeah.
Right now, I want you to flash back and talk to that 20-year-old, 21-year-old that was in college looking to be a lawyer, and tell me, because a lot of people think success is straight up. I don't believe it's like that. I think it's up and down, sideways, go down to this side, and then one day you wake up and you're Rod Hatley and you're a successful lawyer, and people go, wow, you got it made. Look at you. But they don't talk about you telling that 21-year-old the steps and the journey and encourage that 21-year-old Rod. Talk about that.
It's a great question. I think the thing I would say is, what I found is life is not linear. It's just exactly what you said. It's not a straight line. It doesn't go straight up. It goes side to side, up and down, etc. What I found is that the people who tend to be successful in life are the ones who just don't quit. Okay. You have to have a certain toughness of mind. You just have to realize, look, and actually somebody years ago said something I thought was really, really keen. Decide what you want to do. If you want to be a success, decide what you want to be or what you want to do. And also decide that you're willing to pay the price to get there, and then pay that price. And it's not for the faint of heart, and I knew people in law school, they dropped out after the first year. They just said, this is just not for me. And it's fine. Hey, better you learn that now than to get into a career and you hate it. And that's why, people will self-medicate by drinking or doing drugs or whatever, just because they're trying to numb the pain of, I made a terrible decision. Well, look, if it's not for you, then get out of it. But if you like it and you're interested, and you never know what you're going to do. Some people might be great trial attorneys. I enjoyed my time in the courtroom. But I didn't want that life. Because I was working 80 to 100 hours a week as a criminal defense attorney in the Navy, because I thought that my clients deserved no less than the very best defense I could get for them. But, it's very stressful. And I think what I do now is a lot more meaningful for me. It's a lot more fun and it's a lot more impactful, I think. But to answer your question, what would I tell that 21-year-old? I just say, look, just figure out what you want to do, and then just pay whatever price has to be paid to get there. And I wish I could say it's been a straight line all the way to the top. It hasn't. It's had zigs and zags, a 7-year probate, and then we went through the Great Recession, and we've gone through this pandemic. It's not for the faint of heart, believe me. But if you want to be a success, you have to just be willing to just not quit. I think that's the best advice. Just don't quit. Find out what you want to do or what you think you're interested in, and then pursue that until it becomes apparent that either this is a mistake or, gee, I want to make a beeline to this other opportunity. Because as I say, as you pointed out, success is not a straight line. It's not straight up. It's side to side, up and down, that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. And thank you for that. And I'm going to come back to the pandemic question in just a minute on how it's affected your business. It's amazing because you know, you're talking about success, and you know, it's always making adjustments, right?
Sure.
I mean, with the pandemic, with my son and with our business, uh, it's actually, you know, helped us in a way that we did not know when we started. We started the online course during the pandemic,
Sure.
you know, August of 2020, when we started helping veterans online. But I've been teaching it for 3 years,
Right.
helping vets get their VA benefits. And my son, you know, I mean, took over, and it's great having bright, smart young people that know the internet.
Sure. Yeah.
Can help you with all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
How has the pandemic changed or helped or made you look at your business differently, or
Yeah.
how has that affected you?
Well, we definitely had to pivot. We used to do live seminars, and in fact, in 2020, we had a whole slate of live seminars to give, you know, about estate planning to the community, et cetera. That all had to be canceled because of the pandemic. We shut the state down. We had done our first seminar in late February of 2020. It was decently attended, and we thought, you know, and we were really excited. We thought, man, you know, we're just going to tear it up this year. And there's an old joke that if you want to make God laugh, tell him what your plans are for tomorrow. So anyway, we had to pivot to doing webinars, and so and we made a lot of mistakes, and we're going back to webinars. We kind of licked our wounds and said, okay, what was going wrong? Why didn't they work as well as they maybe could have? So now we're retooling, and we're going back to doing webinars that'll be posted to our firm Facebook page. And it will allow people who, you know, if what we share with them resonates, then they can book a call with us. They'll click a link, book a call with us, a 15-minute conversation just to see if we're even a good fit to work together. And then if so, then, you know, we can schedule some follow-on meetings, like a design meeting to design their estate plan. And if they want to hire us to implement that, then we can do that too. But definitely, you know, life is not linear. So we've had to zig and zag and pivot where we needed to. So it's definitely impacted the practice. But, you know, if you don't give up, if you just learn to be adaptable, which I also think is a great characteristic of anybody who's going to serve in the military, being flexible and being adaptable, because you never know where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing in the military, certainly. And, you know, I think in life, it's also a valuable character trait to be able to be flexible, be adaptable. And if you're just really rigid and locked into just doing things a certain way, you will not be, I don't think you'll have longevity, because, you know, the world will change on you. And sometimes it can change overnight.
Wow.
And,
Yeah, we found that out.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So when it comes to state, and I'm so intrigued about estate planning, I'm asking you these questions because I know if they're on my mind, the viewers that are going to watch this, it's on their minds also. So when it comes to estate planning, and I know you can't give fees, but how does it work with different firms, or different based on how many times a lawyer hours he'll work on, or if I say, hey, I want to get a basic will, or I mean, how does that normally work when it comes to doing
well,
that?
a couple of things that your viewers and listeners can consider. I mean, if you're a retiree, certainly, at least in the Navy, the Naval Legal Service Office has attorneys on staff who can do a will, power of attorney, that sort of thing. And I think that's valuable to have that. I mean, certainly it's a wonderful benefit, which I would encourage people to take advantage of. The only challenge is, for example, if you own real property, so you own a home, they can't do a trust that would own the home. Okay. So then you'd need to, you know, meet with a civilian attorney who does estate planning and can do a living trust for you, because the military lawyers just can't, because that's a very specialized kind of estate plan. And many of them are not licensed in the jurisdiction where they need be stationed. So don't have the ability, but, you know, they can draft a nice will. And if you have services group life insurance proceeds, those can be made payable into a testamentary trust that would pop out of the will to hold those monies for your kids if you pass away and the insurance is in place, et cetera. But to answer your question, couple things. You can either talk to the base legal officer, legal assistance officer, I should say, or if it's something beyond their ability to help, or beyond their scope of services, then usually there's a list of attorneys in the local area that they can refer you to. Go and meet with that person, or maybe have a 15-minute phone or Zoom call with that person just to find out, are we a good fit to work together? I would say a lot of firms will charge you by the hour. I don't do that. I charge a fixed fee for what I do. I've been a client, 7-year probate. I don't like getting nickeled and dimed for phone calls, faxes, emails, text messages, all that stuff. I know clients don't either. So I charge a fixed fee for what I do. And a lot of the attorneys that I work with in this area also try to, limit their fees to a fixed fee so that going in, what is this going to cost me? And I always tell clients, look, just work with someone, number one, that you like, okay, that they're able to answer your questions, you feel good about them, you resonate with them, etc. And ideally, they're charging a fixed fee for services because no one likes to get a bill. You call me, let's say, I charge $500 an hour for my time. Okay, you call me and it's a 2-minute conversation. Hey, how am I supposed to take title to this bank account? We talk for 2 minutes, we hang up, and then you get a bill because I have to if I'm billing hourly, I have to round up my time to the nearest tenth of an hour. That's 6 minutes. So you get a bill for $50. Okay, for a 2-minute phone call. What does that tell the client? Number one, the client, don't call me unless it's really important. And you know what? There's really nothing that's that important that I would need to call you for 2 minutes to be charged $50 for a 2-minute phone call that you had to charge me 6 minutes for. So I think clients are smarter than that. I think they get it, and they don't like to be nickeled and dimed. So I think a fixed fee, I like that as a philosophy. I just think it works better for me. And clients, don't like to be billed hourly. I think they like a fixed fee, knowing what it is upfront.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead and give your website again. We'll
Sure.
make sure we put in the chat. Give your website again.
Yeah. The website is Hatley, Hatley, law, LAW, group, GROUP.com, HatleyLawGroup.com. And for your listeners who are outside of California, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to hear from you. And if you want to pursue estate planning, we'd be happy to identify somebody in your local area in our network who could possibly help you. And and if they're in the organization, they've been fairly well vetted, so you'd probably be able to work with just about anybody in our national group.
Man, this is great. I got another question for you before I turn you over to my son to finish it out and close it out. Now go ahead, son. You got something you want to say?
No, yeah. Well, I was going to ask, just in terms of like what you've been doing, Rod. Like what's a story of just maybe a client, anything that you can share, if there's anything you can share, just a situation that you felt like, wow, like their life was changed because of this service that we provide.
Quick story. It's been about 3 years ago. We had a gentleman contact us. He was his father lived here in San Diego County, and I guess his father had started down the pathway with a number of other attorneys, but had never done any planning. Turns out his father was ill, very ill, was in the hospital. And so the son flew in from Boston. So reached out to me, a financial advisor for his father had reached out to me and said, hey, Rod, look, we've got this prospective client. Would you be able to meet with the son? So I drove out to meet with the son, met with dad and said, look, this is what we would charge to do the planning. And, they wanted to balk about the fee. I said, look, guys, I'm not charging you for driving to and from, but if you want to engage us, this is what the fee is. It's a fixed fee, and this will take care of everything. So they engaged us ultimately. We got the plan drafted, and we had to do it quickly because the son, I think we met on a Wednesday, and the son was going to fly back to Boston on Saturday. So we had to get the plan drafted on Thursday and then drive back out to the hospital on Friday to get everything signed. Because dad was very, very ill, he really couldn't sign all the documents. So he could do a signature by mark. He just made an X on both his will and his power of attorney. And then his son, who's now the agent under the power of attorney, could sign all the rest of the documents and execute those. And then I think about a month later, dad passed along. So, we were able to avoid the probate on his paid off home and, all the assets were otherwise into the trust because we were able to work with the son to get everything transferred over. And it made a real difference because then, because that probate would have run into tens of thousands of dollars because the home was, was worth, a fair chunk of change, and it was fully paid off, but it would have taken time. It would have taken months, possibly a year or more, to go through the probate process. And here, we were able to wrap everything up in about 120 days. So that was terrific. And that's really was a great answer for the family.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that is amazing because, you know, it's one thing to talk about what you do, and most
Yeah,
people that are listening to this call are not lawyers, and they're
sure.
like me. They're going to be very intrigued about that because you're probably the first guy that they've ever heard a
Sure.
long, intense conversation about this,
Yeah.
and just hearing what you do is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Uh, I gotta ask you this too. You know,
Yeah.
just based on your experience, and yeah, I'm going back from your military experience because it is Convos with Heroes, and that's what we're talking about. In our opinion, you're an American hero to
Thank you.
serve in the military and now serve helping other people.
Right.
How do you look at your life, man? When you look at the military service that you've done, now comparing it to civilian, what would you say, man? That, you know what, dude? And again, we all need a pat on the back. How would you say, you know, I was surprised I was able to do that, but I'm happy I did do that, whatever that was.
Oh, I mean, I absolutely. As I get older, I mean, I did not ask to go to the high desert, and I got caught up in the downsizing in the mid '90s. So, um, you know, it was not my choice to go to the high desert. I was, you know, I was looking to make, you know, I was USNR, U.S. Naval Reserve, and I was looking to get augmented into the regular Navy, USN. I really enjoyed what I was doing, and I thought I think this would be a great career. That didn't happen, unfortunately, and that's fine. So I was kind of, you know, kind of left a bad taste in my mouth being stuck in the middle of nowhere, you know, and then
Right.
your career comes to an end unceremoniously, et cetera. But I think with time and distance, I look back on it and realize, well, I did some tremendous stuff. I mean, in fact, I was going through my records the other day, and I was just amazed, the letters of commendation and all the stuff, just everything I'd done. It's just humbling to me. I thought, wow, I did all that. I totally forgot. And
Right.
so it really, I think I feel a sense of gratitude, a real sense of, I'm really humbled that I ever had a chance to wear the uniform. And I think, at least I hope, that I always did right by my clients, whether they were the accused at a court martial, or if they were a legal assistance client who needed help, you know, maybe doing a will, or they needed a lease agreement reviewed, or needed to understand the rights and responsibility as a landlord or a tenant or what have you. So I feel very gratified that I was able to ever do that. And the Navy took a chance on me, and I was honored for the opportunity. And I feel, you know, very humbled to have been a part of the military and the Navy specifically.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm gonna kick it to my son and let him hit you up with one of the final questions. I'm
Okay.
enjoying this ride. This is
Thank you, sir.
it's like going to school, man, because my brain, I got smoke coming on my head now, and a page of notes from talking to a lawyer. It's like, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man. I can second that, man. And Rod, you know, this has been really intriguing, very interesting, just, you know, eye-opening to hear your story, to hear just type of thing that you did in the service and things you're doing right now in the civilian world. And you know, you've got a lot of great experiences in life. And our biggest question we always like to ask at the end of our interviews, as kind of a period to our podcast episode, is, you know, when your life is over,
Yeah.
what do you want people to remember you for?
You know, I gave a lot of thought to this. This is one of the questions that you had provided me. And I think what I would say is, my hope would be that clients and their families were benefited by working with me. No conservatorship, no probate, assets were predator protected, you know, and the family was benefited as a result of the work that we did together. I think for me, that's, you know, I can't think of I mean, you know, if you get somebody, you know, you achieve a certain measure of justice for somebody at a court martial, you know, you get them acquitted, okay, because the evidence didn't, you know, was not enough to convict them. And that's thrilling. You feel great. You know, you're walking on air. Okay, we were able to achieve some justice for this service member, but it's temporary, you know. But here, I'm able to do things that I think are going to be long lasting, and I know are going to be long lasting, because I'm affecting not only mom and dad, but also their kids and possibly their grandkids and beyond, because of the work that we were able to do together, that protected everyone that they loved and everything that they own, so that life will go on even when mom and dad aren't there anymore to provide that loving instruction and guidance. They've got a set of instructions that will provide that for them and for their families.
Awesome, awesome.
It's amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rod.
Thank you.
It's definitely been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being a hero and making a difference, because you're changing lives with the work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
That's it for me. I'll go ahead and pass on to my dad to go ahead and close us out.
All right, all right. This is a convo with heroes. We got Rod Hatley, our first lawyer on, and I can tell everybody my brain is smoked. I've been writing notes. It's like I'm back in class. He's been saying words and stuff that I don't even understand. I will tell you that much straight up, but I've enjoyed the conversation. And I want to say before I close this thing out, like I always do, I'm so honored that we have a great American hero on Convos with Heroes. So this is Ranger Johnson closing the call out like I always do. I'm telling you to stay in the fight.